Hello everyone and welcome. I'm Naveen Agarwal and I've created this video as part of my series on ISO 14971, which is the international standard for risk management of medical devices. Now, many of you may already know that this particular standard went through a major revision in 2019, and I've talked about some of the high-level changes in this standard in another video. So I've created this series in order to bring you some tips and insights based on my years of experience in this field to help you ensure not just compliance with this particular standard, but also improve the effectiveness of your risk management process. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the policy for establishing criteria for risk acceptability. Now, this is a requirement in clause 4.2. So we'll take a detailed look into this particular requirement, and I'll offer you details about 5 key elements of this policy that you should be aware of. Question number 1 is, why policy and not just a procedure? Well, according to Merriam-Webster dictionary, a policy is prudence or wisdom in the management of affairs. So policy provides guidance to be able to make decisions consistent with the mission and vision of an organization. So it operates at a much higher level. A procedure, on the other hand, is a set of instructions to achieve a specific objective or goals. And you would expect the procedures overall to align with the policy. But the point here is that the policy is a higher level document, and breaking the policy has severe consequences both for the individual as well as for the entire company. Procedures change all the time, but policies usually don't unless there is a major change in the organization. So the reason why they are requiring a policy is because this is the way they want to assign accountability at the highest level of the organization. Because as an organization, you have to decide how you will determine whether your residual risks after all the controls that you have implemented are acceptable. It depends on your organization and the context of the organization. So this needs to come from the very top. And that's why this is a policy requirement. Okay, so now let's look into the 5 key elements of this policy. And I have relied very heavily on ISO TR 24971, which was also recently released. And that's a guidance for the application of ISO 14971. And if you are working in the risk management field in your company, I strongly recommend that you get this guidance and really review this in detail. Okay, so 5 key elements. The first one is purpose. The purpose is clear. The purpose of the policy has to provide a guidance and framework to establish criteria for risk acceptability. Now, you don't need to define the specific criteria in the policy statement or document, but one good way of doing that will be to link it to your mission or vision. As I spoke earlier, it needs to make sense to people why this policy is in place and what would be expected from them. Okay, number 2, scope. Now, scope should apply to everybody, every operation that is part of the entire life cycle of the product. Now, this may involve your researchers, your manufacturing engineers, your quality people, your regulatory people, even marketing people. Anybody who does anything as part of the product life cycle directly, the policy should apply. So practically, it applies to everybody in the organization. Okay, number 3, factors that you must consider to evaluate your risks. Now, there are 4 of them according to this guidance. The first one is applicable regulatory standards. Some of the standards are very specific, and depending upon where you play, where you sell your products, they might be specific requirements such as your product must continue to safely perform even under a single fault conditions, including software failures. That's a regulatory requirement. Or you might be required to follow some international standards. That's factor number 2. Many of these international standards are recognized as consensus standards by the FDA, for example, and it's their expectation that you will be meeting the requirements of these standards in your product design and performance. So we talked about regulatory standards and international standards. Number 3 is state of the art, which is related to international standards, includes international standards in that scope, but also includes similar medical devices in the field or alternate therapies or medical devices that may be applicable or relevant for you for the intended use of the device. So It may be an expectation that you will follow IEC 60601, for example, for medical electrical equipment, or you will follow IEC 62366 for human factors engineering. And they may be kind of established requirements based on international standards, state of art, and regulatory requirements that you must follow. Finally, stakeholder concerns. They might be bovine-related materials that are prohibited in certain markets, or other chemicals or their residues in the product or packaging. They may be prohibited. So you need to figure out what is required and follow those requirements as you develop your criteria for risk acceptability. Okay, so number 4, that fourth element that you have to think about in your policy is your approach to risk control. Now, there are several ways that the guidance talks about that you can implement an approach to risk control as far as possible, AFAP, without compromising the benefit-risk balance. ALARP, as low as reasonably practicable, not practical, practicable, and as low as reasonably achievable. These terms have caused a lot of confusion because they have to be defined within the context of your organization. So you need to think hard about them and set up clear criteria so that everybody in the organization can understand when they have achieved as far as possible, or when they have achieved as low as reasonably practicable. There's a lot more material in the guidance that you can look up on this topic, but you have to define your approach to risk control. Another way to do that is to simply accept, reject based on the magnitude of the residual risk. Some people do a 3x3 grade or a 5x5 grade on severity of the harm and the probability of the harm, which are the two components of any risk. And they decide on a green zone and a red zone. If it falls in the green zone, it's negligible or acceptable. If it's in the red zone, it's not acceptable, and you must continue to reduce. So there are many ways to do this, but it's intended. The intention here is to be clear about how you will operate within the organization. Okay, the final fifth element is review and approval of a policy document. Obviously, it has to come from the highest level of the organization, but you have to also think about how frequently you will review the policy and make any updates to the policy of criteria for risk acceptability. You may have to monitor state of the art. You may have to monitor international standards or regulatory requirements. And in those situations, an update may be necessary, and you need to define who will review and approve those updates. All right, so we talked about 5 elements of a policy: purpose, scope, factors and considerations for risk evaluation, approach to risk control, and review and approval requirements for the policy. So there's a lot packed in there. And again, I wanted to provide you a broad overview with a strong recommendation to dig into details and learn and understand deeply by using this guidance that I mentioned, ISO TR 24971. So I hope this is useful. Let me know what your questions or comments or thoughts are. Check out other articles on my website, www.exceedqm.com. You can sign up to receive even more in-depth analysis and insights on my videos. I have created a series only for subscribers where I give you even more details, more practical examples. So you can sign up for that. I want to hear from you, so please reach out and let me know what's on your mind.